Blue Jackets can finish 2024 strong and get back in the win column tonight against Carolina, but the Hurricanes are not going to make it easy on them. We're going to talk about that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. And it's almost over. 2024 is almost done. It's not been a great year for the Blue Jackets, but it's been an eventful one. And they are finishing off by going to Nationwide Arena. Really, I was like, they're on the road, they're not. They're at home, which is great. They're at home against Carolina Hurricanes, and they can finish the year with a win. They can improve on their last 10 games. They are 3-4-3 in their last 10 games, which is not great. One of those games was, in fact, the 4-1 loss to Carolina back on December 15th. But the Blue Jackets also have a win against Carolina, 5-4 in the shootout on November 23rd. I will say that was the game where Sean Walker did murder his own goalie, and they did have to put Spencer Martin in for like the last 2 minutes of overtime and also the shootout. So like, I'm not going to pretend that the Blue Jackets didn't get like the benefits of that, but Blue Jackets have a win. Carolina has a win. This is the second to last game of the series for these two teams. They've got one more on January 23rd in Carolina, but we'll see what happens tonight. There's a couple of players I want to talk about on both teams. I want to talk about Kirill Marchenko. I want to talk about Sean Monahan. I want to talk about Zach Werenski. We have to talk about Jack Roslovic, Seth Jarvis. We're going to talk about goaltending, all of that stuff. But I wanted to just kind of talk about how the two teams match up against each other, because it's a little bit different to the last time these two teams faced off against each other. So Blue Jackets power play has crawled out of the basement, which is great. Unfortunately, the Carolina Hurricanes are top 10 in basically everything, which is a problem. Their record right now is 22-13-1 versus the Blue Jackets 15-16-6. They have the fifth best power play in the league, the best penalty kill in the league. They're sixth in faceoffs. They're fifth in goals for per game, and they're eighth in goals against per game. So, like, this is a really, really good team at even strength, at the man advantage, and also while shorthanded. Like, this is just a really good team. This is going to be a really tough game for the Blue Jackets. Like, yes, they've got to win, but they had to kind of grit their teeth and get through that win, you know? And it could very easily have gone the other way had Pyotr Kochetkov not been injured in the last, 2 minutes of overtime. Like, my guess is that we'll see Kochetkov tonight for Carolina. I don't believe we've had confirmation one way or the other. I imagine we'll probably see Elvis Merzlikins for the Blue Jackets, which is fine. It's the better option. Like, they can't possibly start Daniil Tarasov tonight. Like, they can't do it. I can't imagine unless Merzlikins is sick or something. I can't imagine a world in which they start Daniil Tarasov after what happened in the last game, what's been happening basically all season. So my guess is it'll be Merzlikins versus Kochetkov, which is just kind of like drama queen versus drama queen, and I mean that in a mostly affectionate way, I promise. But Kochetkov has a 900 save percentage, is 14-7 on the season, and has a shutout under his belt. Elvis has kind of been up and down. He's got an 890 save percentage, is 11-9-3, but he was very good for the Blue Jackets on Friday against Boston. He's doing that thing again where he has a good game and then a bad game and then a good game and then a bad game. He was excellent against the Devils, had a 952 save percentage, was not great against Philadelphia, which he had an 833, and then he had a 923 against Boston on December 27th. So, like, good game, bad game, good game, bad game. That probably means they would do a bad game from him, which is not great, because Carolina is one of those teams that, like, if they can run the score up on you, I don't think they're going to let you, they're not going to let you get back into the game. You know, um, honestly, the Hurricanes Columbus games have been some of the more fun ones this season. Like, they're a fun team to watch, it has to be said. And I think that they match up well against the Blue Jackets. Obviously, the Blue Jackets did not manage to solve Dustin Tokarski, obviously. The last time these two teams faced off against each other, which, like, I could have written that ending because this always happens to the Blue Jackets. They play against a goalie that hasn't been in the league in like 2 years, and they get goalied by him. So, you know, it wasn't a surprise, but I thought that the teams matched up against each other well, and even more so on that first game, the 5-4 win. I thought again the teams matched up against each other well, but if Carolina gets a quick couple of goals, I don't know that the Blue Jackets will be able to push back on that. So we'll have to see. They've been doing less this year of what they did last year, which was just kind of completely fall apart. They've had a couple of, they've had their moments, but it's been, for the most part, I don't have that same fear of dread going into the third period that I did basically all of last season, where I was like, yeah, no, they have a 5-0 lead, but that's not a big enough lead. And sure enough, that game against Toronto, it wasn't a big enough lead. So we'll have to kind of go from there. But it should be, knock on wood, a pretty good game. Lots of exciting players to watch on both sides. I've talked a little bit about the goaltending. I want to talk a little bit about the players that need to show up big for the Blue Jackets. I'm going to talk a little bit about players that should show up for the Carolina Hurricanes. But I just wanted to pull up the stats while I was thinking about it, which is that the Carolina Hurricanes are one of the stingiest teams in the league in terms of allowing shots. So they're only allowing an average of 25 shots a game. The only team allowing fewer shots is the Kings. So if the Blue Jackets fall into a hole, 1-0, 2-0 kind of early in the game, it's going to be really tough to overcome, not because the goaltending on Carolina is so strong, even though, Kochetkov has been very good, but the defense is just so stifling that, like, I don't know that the Blue Jackets will be able to break through, even though they are one of the better shooting teams in the league. They're currently 7th. They're averaging 30 shots a game. We'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a tough game, but some guys are going to show up big, or we hope some guys are going to show up big. So we'll talk about who needs to show up for the Blue Jackets to have success in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I want to tell you about Rocket Money, because I don't know about you, but I am always signing up for, like, free trials of things and then completely forgetting to cancel. This happened a lot during the pandemic. I needed desperately to find some TV that I hadn't already watched, signed up to a bunch of streaming services, forgot about them, and then what happened was Rocket Money made it really easy for me to go through and cancel all of them, because they do it for you. Like, I didn't realize any of this was happening. Sign up for Rocket Money. It's like, hey, stop spending $70 a month on streaming services that you're not using. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. It rules. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscription, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. I really love the subscription tracker. Like I said, I used to cancel services I wasn't using anymore. I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future, which means I don't need to stress about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We talked a little bit about kind of the team as a whole, but now what I want to do is I want to talk about, like, players that need to show up for the Blue Jackets and players that have been showing up for the Blue Jackets. And basically, they just need to kind of continue doing what they're doing. Yes, I know that they were shut out in their most recent game, but I think that makes these numbers, I think, a little bit more impressive, because when you look at how many points these guys have had in the last 5 games, really means how many points they've had in 4 games, because they obviously didn't get anything in game 5, but Kromachenko is leading the way. He's had 9 points in his last 5 games. Just continuing to take off for the Blue Jackets, leading them in scoring. He's got 40 points so far this season, and has really, really been reaping the rewards of like all that ice time and playing with Sean Monahan. Like those two have really, really hit it off. And again, we're seeing that. They are 1-2 in forward scoring for the Blue Jackets this season. Sean Monahan has 4 goals in his last 5 games. And Dmitry Voronkov is no slouch either. He's been the third person on that line since Igor Chinikov went out with an injury, and in his last 5 games, he's got 8 points in his last 5 games. Had a 3-point night against Boston the first game round, 2 goals and an assist, and then that was his 3rd straight multi-point game. So he's doing really well. He's really kind of succeeded in carving out that niche that's like sometimes you need to be the third dude on a line, and he is doing exceptionally well at being third dude on the line. He's got 22 points in 28 games so far this season. He says sophomore slump, I simply don't know her. And for a 4th round pick has been a real boon to this team, I think. We'll see what his contract is going to look like. He's an RFA at the end of this year, but like that top line again just continues to roll. And like it's not all because of Sean Monahan, but it is a lot because of Sean Monahan. Like there was a really great tweet a couple of weeks ago, I think I read it out on the show, from Jeff Svoboda, where he basically said like the top line of Chinikov, Monahan, Marchenko has like a 60% expected goals for share. The top line of Monahan, Marchenko, and Johnson has like a 55% expected goals for share. Voronkov, Monahan, Marchenko, again, 50-something % expected goals for share. Like there's a common denominator here, and it is Sean Monahan, also probably a little bit Marchenko, but like that top line has really, really been thriving, and it's really fun to see. And I would love for them to thrive again against the Carolina Hurricanes. Dmitry Voronkov scored the only goal the last time these two teams faced off against each other. And he also scored a goal in November 23rd as well. So he's got 2 goals in this season series so far. So I'm hoping that he will decide to keep his scoring ways going. Because quite frankly, it's more fun when he does. Similarly, Sean Monahan continues to excel at home, specifically, which continues to be very funny. I don't have the split of like his home points versus his away points, but he really is living or dying by the Blue Jackets win at home and lose on the road thing, which like is not my favorite, but is again continually very funny. He's got an assist in the season series so far, and like I said, he's got 4 goals in his last 5 games. So look for him to get involved at some point here, and then Kirill Marchenko as well, the third part of that top line, had an assist. The last time these two teams faced off against each other, that actually had 2 goals the first outing, which I believe actually one of them was that insane Kent Johnson move where he basically dragged all 5 Carolina Hurricanes into the corner and then just threw the puck away. Got the puck to Monahan, gets the puck to Marchenko, tie game. And then obviously the Blue Jackets go on to win in the shootout. So like, I haven't even talked about Kent Johnson here because he's continuing to flourish. He's got 21 points so far this season. In I'm not sure how many games, in 23 games. Again, he's really continuing to be just so great. And such a breath of fresh air. And I can already hear all of the, man, should we try and trade for Kent Johnson takes this summer? Because we know that we're going to hear them. I saw someone say that they could probably try and pry Adam Fantilli out of Columbus now that Kent Johnson has shown up, because apparently a team is only allowed to have like 1 exciting offensive player, but that's, we don't have time to get into all of that now. What we are going to get into now is Zach Werenski, who was just named the 3rd star of the week by the NHL. He had, I believe, 7 assists this week. Had a 4-assist night against Boston in the first game of the back-to-back, was just an absolute monster on the power play. I believe 3 of his assists came on the power play goals. I'm just pulling that up now. Yeah, 1 primary assist. Yeah, he had 2 primary assists and 2 secondary assists on 3 power play goals and 1 even strength goal. So, like, just an absolute monster performance from him. Again, he continues to rack up the Norris consideration, if you ask me. And yes, the best defenseman should not always win the Norris, but he's doing all of this and he's holding his own in the defensive zone. He's never going to be like Jacob Slavin, for example, to use a topical defenseman, but he's not getting caved in defensively, and he's been just so excellent offensively that, like, just give him the Norris. Just give it to him. I think he deserves it. I think it would be fun. Again, expecting him to have a big night. In terms of his season series against the Hurricanes, I don't believe he was super involved in the first Carolina game. He only had 1 assist, quote, only. However, he did play 32 minutes and 17 seconds, which is so many minutes. I'm just looking up real quick to see what his lowest ice time is this season, because I think it might be that he hasn't. His lowest ice time this season is 20 minutes and 20 seconds, which is insane. So look for him to play approximately half the game, potentially more, which does kind of speak to a bigger issue with the defense that I won't really get into now because I do want to talk about it in a lot more detail. But, like, if you're playing Zach Werenski so much, then it means that you don't trust your other defenseman. You know, like, if Zach Werenski's getting 50% of the ice time, then, like, your other 2 left defensemen are getting, like, 25% of the ice time each, and that's, I don't know. I personally think it should be closer to a 3-3-3 split, but that is a whole other thing. I do want to talk about it at some point in a little bit more detail, so I won't get too into it now, but expecting Zach Werenski to play, 25, 30 minutes a night does feel kind of like, oh, well, I don't trust my third pairing defenseman, which is what it is. We'll see how it goes. What is impressive is that he's been doing this also. Like, he played 24 minutes against Boston, doing that with 7 defensemen as well. So, like, again, we'll continue to monitor that. We'll see how it goes. I don't know what the split is going to be tonight, whether they're going to keep going 11 and 7. I don't think anyone has said yet. I'm just going to check that my guy Jeff Svoboda hasn't said anything. Looks like the lineup will be the same as it was on Saturday in Boston, going with Elvis Merzlikins in net tonight. So they are going to be going 11 and 7. Kevin Labanc continues to be the odd man out, which is fine, honestly. He had a really good start to the season and then kind of fell off. So I'm sure he'll get back in at some point. But they seem to like rolling 11 and 7. So, and it's, for the most part, knock on wood, been working for them. So we'll see how it does against a team like Carolina, who, again, loves to capitalize on other teams' mistakes. Let's take another quick break, and then when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about the Carolina Hurricanes and who I expect to have big games for them and who probably will have big games or a big game for the Carolina Hurricanes. That's coming up in just a second here at Locked On Blue Jackets. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. I've been your host, Jay Foster, and we're talking about the Carolina Hurricanes, or we're about to talk about the Carolina Hurricanes. And it's everyone's old friend, Jack Roslovic, who I want to talk about first, because I assume that every other Blue Jackets fan, just like me, saw his, like, blistering start to the season and was like, oh, this is a super Jack Roslovic thing. He'll fall off and, he'll finish the season with, like, 20 goals or whatever, which, 20 goals is 20 goals. He has, in fact, just kind of kept scoring goals. It took him a minute to get, like, any assists at all, and he's still got, like, double the amount of goals to assists. He's got 24 points on the season, 16 goals, 8 assists in 36 games. I believe his career high in goals is, like, 22 or 23. It was 22 with his second season with the Blue Jackets. So he's on pace for, a career year, which is, fine and fun and good for him. I am shocked that he has managed to keep up the goal scoring. It's kind of streaky. Like, he will score in 3 straight games, and then he'll go 5 games without a goal, and then he'll score, and then he'll go 6 games without a goal, and then he scored 2 goals in his last game, which was December 28th against the New Jersey Devils. So, like, hopefully he's going to go on a little bit of a cold streak, but he didn't score the last time these two teams faced off. He did score the first time these teams faced off against each other, which I believe was, he tied the game early in the first, late in the first period, or early in the first period. I forgot which way the clock goes here, but he's only got 1 goal so far. He's probably due some more goals, hopefully not against the Blue Jackets, but credit where credit's due, he's been quite a good signing for them. He's leading them in goals, which was unexpected. Second place is Martin Necas, who has 14 goals, but he also has 30 assists on top of that. So, like, Jack Roslovic is leading this team in goals, and is 5th in scoring, or 6th in goal scoring, including Shane Gostisbehere, which is wild. 7th in goal scoring, by the way, is also old friend Eric Robinson, who is also on pace for, like, career numbers. Kind of a streaky player, but he had a goal against the Devils on Friday night. They also did like a home and away thing. And he's got 9 goals on the season, which is almost a career high. Again, his career high was with the Blue Jackets in 2022-23. He had 12 goals, 24 points in 72 games. He's got 9 goals, 19 points in 36 games so far this year. So, again, I don't know that if we'd kept him, he would have done this for us, and that's always kind of the argument for, like, letting guys go, is you look at them succeed somewhere else and you're like, man, what if they'd done that for us? William Karlsson was a big one, like, you send him to Vegas and then he immediately scores like 40 goals in his first season there. And it's like, well, why didn't he do that with us? And he wasn't set up to do that. A, spite is a powerful motivator. And B, some players just don't fit the systems that the team that they have, the team that they're on is putting them in, like, Jack Roslovic has fit in well with the Carolina Hurricanes system. Eric Robertson was always going to fit in well with the Carolina Hurricanes system because he's fast as hell. He seems to have figured out, like, his hands are no longer made of stone, which is, fun for him. But I would really prefer if neither of those guys showed up too loudly tonight. Other guys like Martin Necas, Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, they're always dangerous. Seth Jarvis is maybe one of the more fun young players in this league. And he, I believe, had a big game against the Blue Jackets earlier this season, because, of course, he did. Every time I'm like, hey, I like this player, they just show up and embarrass me personally, which is not my favorite. But look for those guys to show up. I will say one kind of quote-unquote bright spot is their top scoring defenseman, Shane Gostisbehere, who also has been very good for them since signing there in free agency. 27 points in 35 games. He is out tonight, I believe. He's out for a while. He's injured. So that probably means that they'll bring in Ty Smith, who made his season debut for them the other night against the Devils, and is not really a Gostisbehere replacement, but will hopefully kind of fill the gap for them. I assume what will happen is that Brent Burns and Jacob Slavin will play approximately 1 billion minutes, because that's what they do. They are the Zach Werenski of their team. The Zach Werenski and Ivan Provorov, or of their team, I should say. So, honestly, I feel weirdly optimistic about this matchup, but I'm sure that's going to come back to bite me. Do I think the Blue Jackets are going to win? Maybe, honestly. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yes, the Blue Jackets are definitely going to win because of X, Y, and Z. But I do kind of feel quietly optimistic about it. Like, partially that's because, the offense is rolling at the minute. Partially that's because Zach Werenski is inevitable. Partially that's because the Blue Jackets are at Nationwide tonight, and they are so much better at Nationwide than they are on the road that it's honestly a little bit scary. But, like, if everything goes in the Blue Jackets' favor, then this should be a win. if even one bounce goes wrong, it feels like it's just gonna snowball, you know? So I'm going to predict a 4-3 win for the Blue Jackets. I think it's going to go to overtime because, of course, it's going to go to overtime because they hate me specifically and my sleep schedule. But I think the Blue Jackets win in overtime 4-3, and I think it's time for a Cole Sillinger goal. I do. I think it's been a minute since his last goal. He hasn't scored in 5 games. His last goal was against the Tampa Bay Lightning on December 17th. That was the game that he got injured in, I believe. He blocked the shot, I want to say. And then immediately came back and was fine for the next game because kids these days. But it would be great to see him get a goal. It's been a minute. It's been 5 games. So that's my prediction. We're going to get a Cole Sillinger goal tonight, and the Blue Jackets are going to win 4-3 in overtime. We'll be back with you tomorrow for the first episode of 2025, which feels insane to think about. We'll talk about tonight's game. We'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we'll give out, actually, because I ran out of time to do it today, we'll hand out Player of the Month honors. And so get your Player of the Month votes in for who you think the best Blue Jacket was in the month of December, and we'll talk about it on tomorrow's episode. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jacket. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. Again, tomorrow we'll talk about tonight's game. Hopefully we'll talk more about the good than the bad. But until then, have a happy new year. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.